I'm going to read you a question from the audience. It says, I have a 1,400 square foot property that Zillow says it's estimated at $338,000 with a estimate of around $2,000 a month. I have put in about $10,000 to paint and fix the doors after a tenant left. This is not without any new appliances. I still need to put another $10,000 in it. I was wondering if this would still be a good idea to do a slow flip on this home, even though this week I just put $10,000 in. I figure if I have a 30-year loan for $360,000 with $30,000 down payment, that would be about $3,300 for PI and then an additional $340 for TI, totaling around $3,700. My question is, can I find a buyer with this high amount, monthly amount, plus this amount for down payment? Like $30,000 is a lot of money for a property. So they're basically saying, she's like, look, I just found out about slow flips. I already put $10,000 in. I was renting it regular. Is this a good idea? And is anyone going to have $30,000 to put down? And if they had $30,000, why wouldn't they be able to just get a regular loan?
So great question. So first of all, yes, there's more money out there than people realize. Putting $30,000 down is not a big deal. I think I told you on that 875 one I did, they put 60,000 down. And I was surprised how fast it went because I was stepping outside of my comfort zone with such a high dollar house. So the short answer is this wouldn't be my ideal slow flip based on the numbers. However, if you already own it, it's basically just up to you. Would you rather just collect a check and not be a landlord anymore because the house may go up again over the next couple of years and you're going to be locked in at your price now? Or do you just want to be the bank and collect the payment? So your other question, which was a really good one, if somebody has 30 grand or 50 grand or 100 grand, why wouldn't they just get a mortgage themselves? Well, that's easy to say when you're gainfully employed and have great credit, right? But there's plenty of people who are good people and they have money, but and I'm going to give you, for instance, they're contractors and they get paid in cash, or they own their own contracting business and their records aren't great. So when they go to a bank, the banks, oh, I need to see everything. And they're like, well, I have plenty of money, but I don't have any of that. I don't have my tax returns current. I don't have, my record keeping the way it needs to be. And so we have plenty. I mean, we got a lot of buyers that have good money. They just don't qualify for whatever reason with the banks. And so they're happy to have the opportunity that we give them.
Mm. All right. I have another question. One of my issues with slow flips is there's always a chance that I might need to borrow money against the property. I don't need money now, but you never know. There's might be a time that I need to. Are you open to including a subordination clause into the contract for deed? This means like if I purchased the property for 50,000 and later sold it using a contract for deed, how would you feel about putting a subordination clause in order to borrow money against the property? How do you feel about this?
So it's a great question. Now, I personally believe I'm all about free and clear. So I would never want to be borrowing against it anyway. But let's assume that's the situation. You absolutely can for two reasons. One, as long as you're borrowing less than the amount that you sold it. If you bought it for 50 and sold it for 149 and now it's worth 300, don't be borrowing more than the 149, right? Because that's what the person has to pay you off. So as long as you're borrowing less than that your end buyer owes you, then you can still do it without a problem. And you don't even really need to subordinate in most states anyway, because it's not even recorded. But if you were recording it or wanted to have it in it, it's no big deal to put it in your contract. Again, I'm personally not doing it because I believe in free and clear. So I never want to borrow against a property. But if you wanted that as a fallback or just in case, absolutely, you can put it in. I would just never borrow more than you're selling it for to your end buyer.
All right. Next question. According to the Dodd-Frank Act, if you engage in more than 4 contracts in a year, you're required to hold a mortgage license underwriter. How do you navigate this if you're not a mortgage loan officer or don't have a mortgage loan officer underwriter?
So there's multiple different answers for that. And I've spoken with 3 different attorneys, gotten 3 different answers. But the one thing everybody can agree on is that you're allowed to do 3 deals per year per entity. So it's not just 3 deals per year for you, Chantel, but it's 3 deals per year per entity. And on top of that, and this is a huge part of our business, there is no regulation when we sell to investors. and probably 80 to 90% of all of our deals are sold to investors. So there's no regulation on top of that. So it's only your homeowner deals that you have to fit into that box. And with that box, it's 3 per year per entity. So, and then and you can do more than that if you want to, but then you would have to go through the underwriting. So in order to not do the underwriting, just keep it at 3 per year per entity or sell to investors.
So when you say per entity, you mean just put it under another LLC?
Correct.
Okay, got it. All right, next question is talking about property insurance. Do you allow the buyers to obtain their own insurance policy and then add you as an additional insured party? Or do you retain the insurance policy and then just charge them for it? Give us the pros and cons of doing each.
So we require, in our new paperwork, we require them to get their own policy, and then we're added as additional insured. So we used to not be able to do that, and some states we still aren't having luck with it. But in our local market here, we have an insurance company they went through our program and they insure all of our people as homeowners. We've had challenges before them where they would call their own insurance company and they say, oh no, you can only get renters insurance, or you can only get this or that, because they're not on title. We do have one company here, and I can tell you, since you're local, it's Choice Insurance. Choice Insurance will insure all of our people as homeowners. We have some situations in other states where we haven't found a company yet who will do it, in which case we will get the policy and pass on the expense to them. So we do it one way or the other. I prefer them to have their own policy, but if we can't find the insurance company who will do it, then we still do it ourselves.
So in the context of first right of refusal, so meaning like, let's say you go, I want to make sure I don't sell this property. Let's say it's a property that you love and you don't want to ever get rid of. And you're like, I want to do the first right of refusal. Talk about the pros and cons and describe that a little bit.
So I haven't done first right of refusal, but I don't really see any con with it, because you're not committing to buy it. You're just having a right to buy it. So I don't see any con with it. A benefit would be, again, if you see a house that you were in love with. But I can tell you a real life situation that just happened last month. And I'm trying to watch the time because I know we're tight, but I'm going to run you through the numbers. So this was a house that I bought for $25,000. This was on 19th Street in Newport News. And I paid $25,000 for it. And this had to be 06, 07. It had a small house fire. And when the house fire happened, we had insurance on the property, and the insurance company gave me $25,000. So I was like, man, I just bought it for 25. They gave me 25. So I was going to originally just sell it outright. But then I said, hey, let's see if someone will buy it as a slow flip, as is, right? With the fire damage. It wasn't much. It was mostly all smoke damage except for the kitchen. So anyway, so I sold it really cheap to the guy who ended up buying it. I think I sold it for $39,000, and he was only paying me like $400 a month. But he's been there like 10 years now, right? Well, about a month ago, he calls me and he says, hey, I just wanted to see what's the process if I'm going to go ahead and sell this thing. And I said, no problem. Some agents will let you list it as a contract owner, and some agents will ask me to sign the listing agreement. Either way, I'll assist with whatever you need. And then I said, well, by the way, what are you planning on selling it for? And he was like, well, I was thinking I could probably get 75,000 for it. And I was like, whoa, hold up. So I was like, wait a second. So is that what you're going to sell it for? Do you want to sell it for 75? Well, he ended up agreeing to sell it to me for 65,000. Now, keep in mind, it was an odd deal because I still have the deed. I still own the property, and yet I'm buying it now. He owed me about 30, I think 35. And so I actually gave him a check for $30,000 just to sign a release. So it felt really weird. I'm like, I'm buying a house, but I already own it. But it was basically like you said with the first right of refusal, because the way I looked at it, I said, if this house was listed today for 70,000, would I buy it? And I'm like, hands down, 100% without thinking twice about it. So then why would I not buy it from this guy, right? He's going to end up selling it to a stranger, or I can just pay him, which is what I did. So I paid him, he signed the release, and now I own my own property again, which we've resold since.
I want to tell you, one of the reasons why I joined and I just love CHANTEL is that I can get 100% commission, I get revenue share, and I get stock. I am making thousands of dollars every single month in revenue share and stocks. And I now don't have to work nights and weekends on real estate anymore. I've actually never been to a real estate agent's retirement party, and I want to be the first one that people are coming to at a young age. And I want to share with you some of my favorite resources. So if you go to joinchantel.com/free, there's a couple that I want you to download. One is a 20 free lead generating PDF. It's going to help you generate leads for free that you can download, as well as there's one on how to double your business. I don't want you to miss it. Go download it today. joincanzel.com/free.
Let's talk about seller financing. So when you seller financing, what is the percentage that you have come back or default on purchase? So like if you had to get just out of 100 properties, how many of those are defaulting and not paying? And what do you do about getting that property back, and how much of a hassle is it?
So out of 100, I would say we probably might get back about 15. But that doesn't mean we don't file on more than that. And by file, you know what I mean. They're late, we file, but I have a strict rule that we will cancel any court proceeding, any eviction, anything, as long as they pay up, even if it's the day of eviction or the day of court. We will always cancel everything. I know people that are like, well, they've been late 3 times, I want to evict them. And I'm like, no, they'll be late 1,000 times and we'll still never evict anybody unless they just obviously default and don't make any payments. It is not a big process in our states that we invest in. And we pick those states because we only want to invest in landlord friendly states. So in the states, much like in Virginia, it's the same process as a tenant eviction. There are other states where you have to go through a foreclosure process. And so we will not invest in those states, except like Ohio and Illinois. You have to go through a foreclosure process after they've paid down 20% of the purchase price. So the way I look at it is 20% of the purchase price is going to take them about 10 years. If they made it 10 years, then I'm fine. Yes, we would have to go through an eviction. But most of the states we invest in, they don't even have that clause where you can just do a regular eviction, same as if it was a tenant.
Okay. Another question is, on the example he gave, a $66,000 house that sold for $240,000. We first need the $66,000 laying below a mattress to start. In Las Vegas, there's no properties on or near that price. Do you use a line of credit, or how do you get that money?
So for that particular one, I used my own money, but the way we normally do the entire business is through private lenders. And that is why I keep my numbers the way they are with $30,000 houses and $50,000 houses, because with a private lender, and I'll give you real math, if you borrow $50,000 from a private lender, we pay 12% interest. And I know that's a lot of interest, but short-term amortization, it doesn't come out to that bad. On a 12% mortgage for 60 months, it comes out to $1,112.22. And then it's free and clear on the 61st month. And so we do almost everything with private lenders. People that they loan the money, they make a 12% return. We make a monthly payment to them for 60 payments, and the 61st payment, it's free and clear. So that's how you do the deals without having the money lying under your bed. And as far as being in Vegas and you're not going to get any deals in that price point, there's nothing you can do about that other than look outside of your market. And the more you do it outside of your market, the more comfortable you will become with it, and then it'll become a non-issue. I remember I was completely uncomfortable with even considering outside of my market, and now I can buy anywhere in the country and I don't think twice about it.
So I am interested in doing some lending. And so what are the tips do you have for someone who's looking to lend money? Like if I was going to lend money, what would I do? Because my first reaction is I want to lend money in the state of Virginia, because obviously, and even in my market, because I know that market really well. So if you were going to give tips to someone who wanted to actually lend the money, what would those tips be for you?
So twofold. So one is typical lenders that we use are not people like yourself, Chante, who are active in real estate or active in the business. They're just older people that have money in their bank account and they'd rather make a 12% return than a 5% or a 4% return. And so I manage everything for them as far as vetting. If they're lending to one of my coaching students, I'll vet the property for them and I'll make sure that it's a property that I would buy for the same amount. If you are somebody active like yourself, Chantel, the biggest advice I give anybody who's a new lender and they are active is, I do this when I lend myself. I say, well, I'd never lend on anything I wouldn't buy for that amount of money. And that's the way I always do it when I lend. I said, hey, if somebody wants to borrow $100,000 on this, would I buy that thing for $100,000? Because in essence, I might be, right? And so if you're active in the business, I always say, as long as you would buy it for that price, then I'd feel comfortable lending. If not, then I wouldn't. And then for the inactive lenders, I do that for them. I vet them for them.
So what are the states? So you kind of said, we've done some research on the states that you think are the best to buy these type of properties. What are the states that you think are the best?
The states that we're doing a lot in now is going to be Missouri, Illinois, Ohio, Alabama. We do a lot in Alabama. Those four are probably the highest concentration of deals right now. It is amazing to me. And there's a lot of I haven't invested in Indiana. I saw somebody commented, a lot of my guys do invest in Indiana. It is amazing to me. We live in a bubble, right? And we know what we see for this price point. I will see houses like in my group that they paid $17,000 for. And I look at it and I'm like, it's a beautiful ranch. It looks move-in ready. And then they'll get it sold at $89,900 a month. And I'm like, oh God, do the math. You paid $17,000. It's crazy. But that's because we live in a bubble and we see everything the way we see it in our local market. When you start expanding out and looking, and you're just bored, go online and you can type in Illinois and go in Zillow, houses under 50,000, and start looking at them, and you'll be amazed with what comes up. And it's amazing what's out there in the country. But again, we all live in a bubble and we think that we know price points, but we know our local market. It's amazing what else is out there.
All right, last question. So Indiana requires the full foreclosure process on land contracts. Do some states require full foreclosure process, or do some have an easier or a partial process?
So I don't know Indiana because I haven't invested in Indiana yet, but most of the states that we're in, we do just a regular eviction process, except when they pay down 20%, in which case then, and Alabama requires foreclosure also, and without the 20%. And yes, it's a full process. It's a full process. In Alabama, it's inexpensive, but in Virginia, to do a foreclosure, it costs you around $5,000. So I even do some regular financing here in Virginia. If somebody wants the deed in their name, and the way I do that is I require them to pay an additional $5,000 down. And I tell them it's because you have a default. It's going to cost me another $5,000 to get the house back, and they'll do it. And I don't mind. I don't mind. I want the deed in their name. It's less on me then. And so as long as they're willing to put down the other $5,000, then I'm fine with it. And every state might be different for what the foreclosures cost. I know in Alabama they're very inexpensive and quick. Like here, it might take you a few months. In Alabama, it's like 6 weeks for the whole process. So then you'll obviously research that state and what the foreclosure costs are and timelines.
So yeah, quickly, just explain having the deed in their name and explain what is the foreclosure process. So like if someone, let's just say in Virginia, if someone wanted to foreclose, give us kind of what is the nightmare that they'd have to go through.
So it's not a nightmare. Basically, we just hire an attorney. You hire an attorney. The attorney has to publish it, which is kind of a scam. They have to publish it twice in the paper. Nobody reads the paper anymore, but yet the papers charge you like $2,000 to publish this little classified. Why? Because it's the law that you have to publish it, and they can. That's it. There's no reason that it should cost $2,000 to publish a little classified ad, but they know the law requires it to be published, and they're the only paper left. So they're like, you have no choice. So the lawyer who you hire then would publish it twice in the paper, and then on the date that it's stated in the paper, they will have an auction at the courthouse steps. And if anyone shows up to bid on it, as long as it bids over what you're owed, it'll sell. And if it bids below what you're owed, where you started at, then it reverts back to ownership, back to you.
Wow. And then explain the deed in their name. Like if they want the deed in their name, explain what that process looks like.
So as long as you've owned it for more than a year, and the reason I say over a year is because if you transfer the deed in less than a year, the IRS wants to tax you on the full amount of gain, even though you didn't get it. So let's assume you waited over a year, you owned it over a year. If you deed it to them, now the deed shows up in their name and you are just a note in deed of trust, just like a Bank of America would be on a house if you got a mortgage from them. The deed's in their name. They could refi, they can get a equity line, they can do anything. They own the property and you are just a mortgage payment. That's it. And if they have a default, then you would have the same rights as Bank of America would, and you would file a foreclosure. But you're not getting any notices for the grass being high. You're not involved in anything. You're not an owner of the property anymore.
So what percentages of your houses do you put the deed in their name, and what are the pros and cons of doing that?
I do very few, only if they want to. The reason I'll do them is if somebody has to put 30, 40, 50 grand into it, sometimes they're nervous, and rightfully so, that I'm going to spend 50 grand and I don't even have the deed. And if they're talking to me about it or concerned, I will tell them, you can have the deed, but this is the way we need to do it. I just want additional money down to protect me if they had to default. So the only con is if they were to default, you have to go through foreclosure. That's it. The pros, I like all the pros. The pros is it's not yours anymore. There's no more liability whatsoever for you. You are just an additional assured on the policy. It's no longer your house. You're just the bank, which is kind of our goal with the whole process anyway.
Well, tell listeners where they can find you, where they can follow you, and where they can get your amazing book.
Well, if they haven't listened to the first two, I was giving everybody a free copy of the book, The Art of the Slow Flip, and they can just get it by going to slowflip.com, SLOWFLIP.com, and just pay shipping and handling. Other than that, I'm on all socials under my name, Scott Jelinek. So it makes it real easy.
Awesome. Well, this has been amazing. You give such a wealth of knowledge. Thanks for being with us today, Scott.
You are very welcome. Have a fantastic day and look forward to talking to you soon.
Yes, thanks so much. And you guys, if you want the checklist that we put together, you can go to joincanzel.com/slowflip and get that checklist that we put together. It gives you just kind of an idea of some of the things we've gotten from his book and kind of wrote it down, that it just makes it real easy to look at that checklist. All right. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a rating and a review so we can get this out to more agents. And tune in next week for another power-packed episode. This is the Millionaire Real Estate Podcast.